The funeral flowers hadn't even wilted when the phone calls began. I was in the kitchen on a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after burying my husband Robert, watching the steam rise from a cup of coffee I hadn't taken a single sip from. The mug, the one that said "World's Best Grandma," a gift from my granddaughter Emily years ago, suddenly felt foreign in my hands. Everything felt foreign now. The house, my reflection in the hallway mirror, even the sound of my own voice each time I answered the constant calls from my kids. "Mom, we need to talk about the house." Mark, my oldest son, had that familiar tone of restrained irritation, the same one he used as a teenager whenever he wanted money. The only difference now, at 32, was that he wasn't asking, he was demanding. I set the cup down, still untouched. "Good morning to you too, Mark." "Don't start, Mom. Lisa and I talked about it. Honestly, this can't go on. The house is way too big for you alone. The monthly payments, there aren't any." The words came out dry and sharp. Robert had paid off the mortgage 5 years ago, but I'd never told the kids. They just assumed we still owed money, and I let them think that. Silence. Then came that hollow laugh, the same laugh Mark inherited from his father, though Robert always used it gently. Mark used it like a weapon. "Mom, please. Dad's pension can't possibly cover your medical bills. Everyone knows you're struggling financially." I walked to the window above the sink, looking out at the garden Robert and I had tended for 23 years. The rose bushes needed pruning. The herb patch was overgrown. What used to bring me joy had become monuments to everything I'd lost. "Your concern is touching," I said, staring at my reflection in the glass. My silver hair needed dyeing. The wrinkles had deepened in just a month. 63 years of life etched into a face that still surprised me sometimes. "Don't make this dramatic, Mom." Amy agrees with me. "You think I should move in with one of you?" Amy, my daughter, hadn't called me once since the funeral. She didn't even answer when I tried. "And exactly when did Amy agree with you?" Silence again. I could almost picture Mark running his hand through his thinning hair, a habit he picked up from his father. "Last night at dinner, we all talked about your options." My options. As if I were a problem to be solved, not a person to be cared for. "I see." I opened the fridge and stared at the lasagnas and pies neighbors had dropped off, still untouched. "And those options include selling my house, don't they?" "Financially, it makes the most sense. You could help Lisa and me with the down payment on a new place. We're looking at a 2-story house in the Chicago suburbs, and Amy could use a little help with Emily's tuition. Win-win for everyone." I shut the fridge door a bit harder than necessary. Win-win. "You know I didn't mean it like that," he said, but of course, he did. Mark had always been blunt in his selfishness, even as a child. Amy, on the other hand, was more subtle, manipulative in the way that made me feel guilty for not offering what she wanted without her having to ask. "What exactly did you tell your sister about my finances?" I asked. "Just the truth. Dad's pension isn't enough. The house is too big for you, and you're probably struggling more than you admit. The truth." As if he knew anything about my real situation, as if either of them had ever cared to ask about Robert's business, his investments, or the modest inheritance from his mother that we'd carefully saved for years. I thought about the file I'd found in Robert's desk while sorting through his papers, bank statements, investment portfolios, and the deed to a small cabin in the Florida Keys that he had secretly peated of choir, bought as a surprise for our retirement. "A place where we can watch the sunset and sip wine without anyone needing anything from us," he'd said just 6 months before the heart attack. "I'll think about it," I finally said. "Mom, we're not asking you to think. We're telling you what needs to happen. Lisa's cousin is a realtor and already found a buyer cash offer, quick closing. You should start packing." I gripped the phone tighter. "You already found a buyer for my house?" "We're just trying to help you, Mom. The sooner you accept that this is the best solution for everyone, the easier it'll be. A transition plan." It sounded like grief was a corporate merger, as if 30 years of marriage could be reduced to a few pages and a profit margin. "So, where exactly will I live during this transition?" That's what we wanted to talk about. Amy just remodeled her basement. "Emily's at the dorm most of the year, so there's plenty of space. You'll have your own entrance, your own bathroom, it's perfect." Amy's basement, the one that flooded every spring, where she kept Christmas decorations and unused exercise machines. The same basement I'd been banished to last Thanksgiving while the real adults ate upstairs. How generous of Amy to offer. She's really excited, Mark said. Thinks it'll be good for both of you. You can help with Emily when she's home. Maybe I'll cook a little, I said dryly. You know, Amy's always struggled with meal planning. Of course she had. Amy struggled with cooking, laundry, cleaning, and remembering to call her mother. But she was very good at assigning those struggles to others, especially to the woman who'd raised her to be independent. And what about you, Mark? I asked. What's your role in this arrangement? My voice turned cold. Lisa and I will handle the sale, the paperwork, negotiations, all that. We'll make sure you get a fair price. Fair. I almost laughed. In Mark's dictionary, fair always meant beneficial to him, like one of those carnival games rigged so the player always loses. I need more time to think, I said. Mom, there's nothing to think about. Tom, Lisa's cousin, has serious buyers. They want to close in 1 month. 1 month. They were giving me 1 month to dismantle the life Robert and I had built to leave the house where we'd celebrated birthdays, graduations, and nursed our kids through fevers and teenage heartbreaks. I said I need to think. Fine, but don't take too long. Good opportunities don't wait forever. The line went silent. I stood in the kitchen, holding the phone, listening to the emptiness echo through the house. Outside, a dog barked. A car door slammed. Life went on, while mine seemed to slip further out of reach. I walked to Robert's office, the room where he used to pay bills and plan our future for more than 20 years. The folder was still there, tucked under old tax files. I pulled it out and spread the papers across the wooden desk we'd bought at an estate auction when Mark was still in high school. Bank statements with balances that would make my kids' eyes widen. Investments that had remained steady despite every market swing. The deed to the small cabin in the Florida Keys, along with photos of its white walls and a porch facing the sea. Robert had always been a quiet man, deliberate in everything he did. He never bragged about our stability or finances. Let them think we're struggling, he once said when Mark asked to borrow money for another venture. It builds character. At the time, I thought he was being harsh. Now, I knew it was wisdom. My phone buzzed a message from Amy. Mom, Mark told me about the house. I know it's hard, but it's really for the best. Emily's so excited to be closer to you. Can't wait to talk more about the details. Emily, my granddaughter, the little girl who spent every summer here with me and Robert, learning to bake in this very kitchen, planting tomatoes in that same garden. She used to call me every week during her first semester in college, homesick, tired, finding comfort in a grandmother who always had time to listen. When was the last time she called? 2 months ago? 3? I scrolled through my phone, checking for recent messages. Nothing since Christmas, just a group text thanking everyone for the gifts. No personal messages, no updates about school or friends or plans for the summer. The silence wrapped around me, heavy with clarity. They had all moved on, every one of them. Robert's death, to them, was just another logistical inconvenience, something to be handled, not grieved. And me, I was simply another problem waiting for an efficient solution. I folded the folder shut and placed it back in the drawer. Then I went upstairs, opened the closet where Robert's jacket still hung, still carrying the faint scent of his cologne. I reached for the suitcase on the top shelf. It was time to pack, but not the kind of packing Mark had in mind. The law office in downtown Columbus smelled of leather and old paper, a scent that reminded me of Robert's study, but the atmosphere here was different. Strong, authoritative. I sat across from Mary Thompson, the family attorney Robert had chosen years ago, a woman in her early 50s with silvery hair and sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to read every thought. Mrs. Janet, I have to say, this is quite an unusual case. Mary spread the folders across the mahogany desk, each page perfectly prepared. Your husband was very specific about these provisions, though I honestly didn't think I'd have to execute them. I adjusted my black dress, the same one I wore to the funeral, and steadied my voice. Robert always said I underestimated people's capacity for selfishness. I'm starting to think he was protecting me from a truth I wasn't ready to face. Mary nodded slightly, her fingers brushing the edge of the papers. The trust your husband created gives you full control of all assets. Your children are not listed as beneficiaries of any real estate, only the life insurance policy. Everything else, the house, the investments, the cabin in Florida belongs entirely to you. And They have no idea about the house in the Florida Keys. According to Robert's instructions, that information was to be revealed only to you, and only 30 days after his passing. Mary leaned back in her chair, her gaze gentle but knowing. It seems Robert anticipated that your children might pressure you into making quick decisions. Pressure. Such a mild word for what Mark had done. I remembered his tone on the phone yesterday, commanding, not concerned, treating me like a helpless child who couldn't manage her own life. About the sale they've arranged, I said. Can it be canceled? Absolutely, Mary replied. You're the sole owner. No transaction can proceed without your signature. If they've made promises to anyone, they've done so based on a false assumption. A faint smile crossed Mary's lips, discreet but meaningful. Robert was very deliberate in protecting your independence. I felt something loosen inside my chest, the knot of anxiety I'd carried since Mark's call. As for the vacation home in the Florida Keys, Mary continued, it's fully paid off and legally yours. The property management company Robert hired still sends monthly reports. The house is well maintained and ready for you to use whenever you wish. Whenever I wish. How long had it been since anyone spoke to me about choice rather than obligation? Mary pulled out another folder. There's one more thing. Robert wanted you to have this. He wrote this letter to be delivered exactly 1 month after his death. And today happens to be that day. The cream-colored envelope bore my name in Robert's familiar handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. His voice seemed to echo through the room. My dearest Janet, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you're facing everything on your own. I know our children well, though. I love them dearly. I can guess that by now, they're circling like hawks, convinced they know what's best for you. They don't. You are not a burden to be managed, nor a problem to be solved. You are a strong, intelligent woman, the one who raised 2 children, stood by me through every career change, and kept our family steady with grace and strength for over 30 years. Don't let anyone make you believe otherwise. All the assets are yours. Use them however you wish. Keep them, sell them, give them away. It's your choice. But do it because you want to, not because others expect it. I've watched you sacrifice your dreams for decades, always putting family first. Now it's time to put yourself first. Go to Florida if you wish. Travel. Write the book you once talked about. Do whatever makes you happy. The kids will be fine without your constant sacrifices. Maybe they'll even grow up because of it. With all my love and faith in your strength, Robert. P.S. The key to the cabin in the Florida Keys is in my desk drawer, behind the photo of us at Yellowstone. I read the letter twice. My eyes blurred with tears. Robert had known. He had seen what I was too close to recognize, that our children had learned to treat my love as a resource to exploit, not a gift to cherish. Are you all right? Mary's gentle voice broke the silence. I folded the letter carefully. I feel better than I have in weeks, I said. What do I need to do? To transfer the house to my name? Nothing, Mary replied. It's already in your name. Robert removed the children from all property documents 3 years ago, after Mark asked him to co-sign for a restaurant investment, the same restaurant that later went bankrupt. A restaurant? I remembered the arguments, the shouting, how Mark had raged when Robert refused to risk his retirement savings on a so-called sure thing. Back then, I thought Robert was being stubborn. Now, I understood it was wisdom. There's one more thing, Mary said, pulling out a small envelope. Robert asked me to give you this bank card and the PIN. It's connected to an account he opened last year. He called it Janet's Freedom Fund. The card felt solid in my hand. How much is in it? $50,000, she said. He deposited money into it every month, saying it was for the day Janet decided to live for herself. $50,000, a sum I never knew existed, taken from his pension and investment dividends while I carefully budgeted every penny. That money wasn't meant for security, it was meant for freedom. I left the law office with a folder full of documents and a clarity I hadn't felt since before Robert died. The house was mine. The cabin in Florida was mine. The investments were mine. And most importantly, the right to decide what to do with all of it was mine. As I reached my car, the phone rang. Amy's name flashed on the screen. Mom, thank goodness I caught you. I wanted to talk about the basement remodel. Lisa knows a contractor who can add a little kitchenette for you with a private entrance. It'll be perfect. I unlocked the car but didn't get in. "How thoughtful," I said. "I know you'll worry about costs, but Mark and I figured we could subtract it from the house sale. Think of it as an investment in your comfort." My comfort. Not my freedom or happiness, just comfort. As if I were an old pet being relocated somewhere easier to manage. "Amy?" I asked. "When was the last time you called me just to ask how I'm doing?" Silence. "What do you mean, Mom?" "I mean a call where you didn't need anything from me. You just wanted to know how I was feeling or simply because you missed talking to me." "Mom, that's not fair. I'm paying for Emily's college, and you know how busy my job is. Emily's college expenses." I leaned against the car, watching people rush by on a Thursday afternoon. "Tell me about Emily's tuition." "Well, tuition is about $28,000 a year, plus housing, books, and other dorm fees." "Amy, I've been sending Emily $500 every month since she started college. That's been 2 years now. That's $12,000 total." Silence. "That money was meant to help her with tuition. The same money you never mentioned to Mark when you two discussed my so-called financial struggles. Mom, that money helped, but it wasn't enough. Did you ever tell Emily that I've been sending her money?" Another silence, this one longer. "She knows you've been helping. She knows the amount. She knows it's from your pension, not from the education fund Robert left behind. And you think those details don't matter?" I closed my eyes, feeling a chill spread through my stomach. "You never told her, did you? She thinks her tuition is being paid through your hard work and sacrifices. She has no idea her grandmother has been quietly funding her education." "Mom, you're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Or maybe I'm finally seeing things clearly for the first time." I hung up and got into my car. My hands trembled, but this time, not from sadness, from anger. A clean, sharp anger. The kind that comes when you finally wake up from a long dream. When I got home, I went straight to Robert's desk and found the key exactly where he said it would be. A small brass key, attached to a keychain with a tiny American flag. Behind it was a photo I'd forgotten Robert and me on our 25th anniversary trip to Yellowstone. We were laughing at something the photographer said. I looked younger in that photo not because of fewer wrinkles, but because of the carefree, happy light in my eyes that I had lost long ago. My phone buzzed a message from Mark. "Mom, Tom needs an answer by tomorrow. The buyer's losing patience. Don't ruin this for the family. Don't ruin this for the family." I deleted the message without replying and opened my laptop. It took 20 minutes to find the website of the property management company and another 10 to write the email to Mrs. Linda, who managed the Florida Keys cabin. "Dear Mrs. Linda, my name is Janet Miller, widow of Robert Miller. As you may know, Robert purchased a small cabin in the Florida Keys, and I'd like to begin using it again. Please let me know if you need any information from me. I plan to travel to Florida soon and would like to stay there for a while. Sincerely, Janet Miller." I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Then, I pulled out the suitcase I'd packed the night before and began organizing the rest of my things. First, I opened Mark's old closet and carefully placed inside a box his trophies, old-school projects, and the baseball glove Robert had given him for his 10th birthday. All his childhood keepsakes, packed neatly and labeled clearly. I was halfway through packing Amy's room when the phone rang, an unfamiliar number. "Mrs. Janet, this is Linda. I just got your email." Her voice was warm enough to tighten my chest. "I hope I'm not calling at a bad time, but I'm thinking of heading to Florida very soon." "Oh, not at all. The cabin's ready. Robert would be so happy to know. You're coming. When are you planning to arrive?" I looked around Amy's old room, the room I was boxing up for children, who now saw me as nothing more than an obstacle standing between them and their inheritance. "Next week," I said. "I want to go next week." The next morning, the moving truck arrived at exactly 7 a.m., just as Mark's car pulled into the driveway. From the upstairs window, I saw him get out with a scowl, that same look I'd known since his teenage years, the one that always signaled an argument was coming. He wore the beige suit Lisa had picked out for job interviews, holding a thick stack of papers, probably the house sale documents. Perfect. The movers, middle-aged American men, professional and punctual, had already begun loading the old boxes. I'd hired them to take away Mark's and Amy's things, along with a few pieces of furniture they'd said they wanted to reclaim later. Robert's leather armchair, my mother's antique dining table, and the piano Amy had begged to learn before quitting after 6 months. "Ma'am, where are these boxes going?" the foreman asked, checking his list. "The first set goes to 247 Maple Drive, Mark's house," I said, handing him the neatly written note. "The second to 892 Pine Avenue, Amy's place. When you deliver them, tell them they're gifts from Janet Miller keepsakes. I'm sure they'll want a treasure." He nodded professionally, though I caught a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. 20 years in the moving business, he'd probably seen more than a few family wars. The sharp knock on the door cut through my thoughts. I opened it wearing the red dress Robert used to say made my eyes brighter, my hair brushed, my face calm. Gone was the weak woman my son thought he could control. "Mom, what the hell is going on? Why is there a moving truck in the driveway?" "Good morning, Mark. I'm just clearing out a few things." He pushed the door open, his eyes darting around the hallway at the boxes labeled with his name. "These are my things, my childhood stuff. Why did you pack everything up? I thought you'd want to keep them. Precious memories, right?" His face flushed red, the color rising from his collar to his ears, the same look he had every time he got caught lying as a teenager. "Mom, we need to talk. Tom's client is ready to make an offer. We need your signature today." I closed the door and leaned against it, watching him pace the hallway like a caged animal. "Mark, sit down." "I don't want to sit. I want to know why you're acting so strange. First, you don't answer your phone for 3 days, and now there's a moving truck outside." "Sit down." My tone was steady enough to stop him mid-step. He sat on the lowest stair, clutching his briefcase like a shield. "Tell me, Mark, what did you tell Tom's client about the money from selling this house? What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the fact that you told them the money would be split between you and Amy, didn't you? You've already figured out how much each of you would get after deducting that mystery mortgage you're so worried about, haven't you?" His jaw tightened. "Mom, you're not thinking clearly. Losing Dad has clouded your judgment. My judgment has never been clearer." I walked over to Robert's armchair, the one the movers were about to take to Mark's house, whether he liked it or not. "Let me ask you something else. When you and Amy had dinner discussing Mom's situation, did either of you stop to ask how I was coping with losing your father?" "Of course we care. Did you ask if I've been sleeping, eating, if I needed someone to talk to, or simply someone to sit with me? Did anyone ask what I wanted to do with my life for the first time in gold in whited? 30 years, now that I'm alone?" He stared at me, his hand gripping the briefcase tighter. "Or did that dinner consist of calculating how much money you could squeeze out of your father's death? That's not fair, Mom." I took out my phone and opened the calculator app. "Let's see. If you sell this house at Tom's appraised value $350,000, then split it between you and Amy, after subtracting those imaginary costs. That leaves each of you about $160,000. Am I right?" The color drained from his face. "Just as I thought. Mark, do you even know exactly how much your father's pension leaves me every month?" "Mom, I don't—" $4,200 a month, plus investment dividends and retirement income you don't know about. Now tell me again, why can't I manage this house on my own?" Mark jumped to his feet, his briefcase hitting the floor. "You lied to us." "I never lied. You assumed I was struggling, and I didn't correct that assumption. There's a difference." "But you let us believe it." "No, Mark. You wanted to believe it. Because it made it easier to justify treating me like a burden to be handled instead of a person to be loved." The rumble of the moving truck echoed outside the window. I saw them loading Robert's armchair onto the truck bed. "Mom, if you don't need the money, then why are you doing this?" He hesitated, eyes flickering as realization hit him. "You're punishing us." "No, I'm giving you exactly what you asked for." "That's not what we wanted." "Oh, yes, it is. You wanted me out of the house I'm leaving. You wanted me to divide up my belongings so they wouldn't be a burden. I'm dividing them now." I bent down, picked up his briefcase, and glanced at the papers stamped with Tom's Realty across the top. "You wanted to handle my affairs, Mark? The problem is, they're not yours to handle." He reached for the briefcase, but I held on tight. "Mom, please be reasonable. We can work this out. Maybe you don't have to move into Amy's basement. We could find you a smaller, more convenient apartment instead." "More convenient for who, Mark?" That question landed between us like a blade. His mouth opened, then closed again, searching for words that wouldn't condemn him further. My phone rang, Amy calling. "Answer it," I said. "Put it on speaker." Mark shook his head, but I pressed the button. "Mom, there's a delivery truck at my house. 2 guys are trying to drop off a piano, and I have nowhere to put it." "Hello, Amy," I said calmly. "That's the piano you begged me to buy when you were 8. I thought you'd want it back." "I don't want it. I have no room for a piano. And Mark just called to say you're refusing to sell the house. What does that even mean?" "It means exactly what it sounds like. This is my house. Robert left it to me, and I'm not selling. But Mark said you can't afford to keep it. Mark has been wrong about a lot of things." Silence, longer than before. When Amy finally spoke again, her voice carried that cold, sharp tone she'd perfected in her teenage years. "Mom, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but a lot of people are counting on this deal. I even told Emily she'd have her own room once you moved in with me." "Emily?" I turned to Mark, whose face had gone pale. "Tell me about Emily. What about her? When was the last time she called me?" "I don't keep track of Emily's calls. The last time was December 15th, during Christmas break. She wanted to know if I'd send more money for her holiday trip." I walked to the window, watching the movers tie Robert's armchair onto the truck. The girl didn't ask how I was doing, didn't mention missing her grandfather, she just wanted money. "Mom, Emily's a college student. Everyone's selfish at that age." "Selfish? Or did she learn it from her mother that grandma exists only as a financial provider, not someone to connect with?" "Mom, you're twisting things." "Am I, Amy? How much money have I sent Emily over the past 2 years?" Silence. $12,000. $500 a month. Straight into her account. Money you never mentioned to Mark when you told him I was struggling. Money Emily thinks came from your sacrifices, not mine. Mark stared at me, jaw dropped. "You've been sending Emily money every month since she started college?" "Because I love my granddaughter and want her to have the best chance possible." I turned to face them both, Mark in front of me, Amy through the phone. "But love shouldn't have to be hidden. Help shouldn't be a secret. When did this family decide that what I do only has value if no one knows about it?" Amy's voice through the speaker suddenly softened. "Mom, that's not what we meant." "Oh yes, it is. You both want my money but not my presence. You want my obedience but not my opinion. You want my submission, not my freedom." I hung up and looked directly at Mark. "The movers will be at your house in 30 minutes. I suggest you make space for some childhood memories." "Mom, please, we can fix this." "How?" He froze, his eyes flickering, trying to find the familiar words that might reopen the door to my money without having to rebuild respect or love. "We could have dinner together, talk about what you really want, and what I do too." I laughed, the first real laugh I'd had in months. "Mark, what I want is to spend the rest of my life around people who see me as a person, not as an emergency wallet. What I want is to wake up every morning without wondering which one of you will call asking for money. What I want is for you to remember me for my presence, not my bank account." The sound of the moving truck's engine rumbled outside. Mark stood up, papers scattering around his feet. "Where are you going?" I smiled, the first genuine smile since Robert passed. "To somewhere warm." Mark bent down to grab the papers, his movements frantic, desperate. "You can't just disappear like this. We're your family." "Yes, you are family." He looked up at me from the floor, and for a moment I saw the little boy who used to climb into my lap after nightmares, the boy who needed me to bandage his scrapes and tell stories to chase away the dark. Then he stood up, and the moment vanished. "When will you come back?" I opened the front door, letting the morning light and the sound of the moving truck fill the house. "I'll let you know." The flight to the Florida Keys was 13 hours of absolute clarity. I sat by the window seat Robert always preferred, watching the Atlantic stretch endlessly below like a vast promise. The woman next to me, a retired lady from Georgia visiting her daughter, tried to make small talk when the plane took off, but something in my expression must have stopped her. I wasn't ready for polite conversation or confessions at 30,000 feet. I was savoring the silence of a phone that no longer rang. 3 days after Mark left my house, the calls began. Mark, Amy, even Lisa, the daughter-in-law who hadn't once called me in the 5 years she'd been married to Mark. The first voicemails were apologies, then they turned frantic. "Mom, this must be a misunderstanding. Janet, It's Lisa. Mark's really upset. I think if you just talk to him, we could fix this. Mom, Emily's asking about the money and I don't know what to tell her. And finally, fine. If you want to play this game, you two can play. Don't expect us to come running when you realize how lonely you are. Amy's last message made me realize something important. It wasn't a warning, it was a threat. A threat that I'd eventually crawl back, begging for their conditional love. But to me, it felt like freedom. That night, I turned off my phone. At the Miami airport, the customs officer was a young woman with kind eyes. She stamped my passport efficiently. "Purpose of your visit, ma'am?" "I'm here to start over," I said. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from anyone under 40 in months. "Welcome to Florida, ma'am. Mrs. Linda, the property manager, was waiting for me at arrivals, just as she'd promised. A petite woman in her 60s, with neatly tied silver hair and eyes that sparkled warmly when she smiled. In her hands was a small sign with my name written in careful handwriting. "Mrs. Janet, welcome." She hugged me like an old friend, and I hugged her back, both of us surprised by the sudden rush of emotion. "How was your flight? Are you tired or hungry? The house is ready. I just made something simple, but you can do your own shopping later." Her voice carried that soft southern lilt, warm and musical. As we walked to the car, she chatted about the weather, the neighborhood, and the garden she'd tended for me while I was away. "Mr. Robert was so proud of this place," she said as we drove along the winding roads of the Florida Keys. "He once showed me pictures on his phone, you in your Ohio kitchen, your grandkids, always pictures of the grandkids. My Janet will love the kitchen here," she said, mimicking his voice. "She'll fill it with life." I pressed my lips together, unable to speak. Robert had talked about me right here, in this very place I had never set foot in with a woman I had never met. He had imagined a future for us, a future stolen by death. But somehow, through Linda's words, that future felt alive again. The house took my breath away. It was smaller than the one in Ohio, but perfectly balanced, with white walls and sea blue window frames that caught the afternoon sunday. Purple and pink bougainvillea spilled over the fence, and lemon trees heavy with fruit lined the stone path to the front door. "It's beautiful," I whispered. "Robert chose well. He had great taste," Linda smiled, pulling out the brass key I'd once found in his desk drawer. "Come on, let me show you inside." Inside, the house was cool and bright, with terracotta floors and windows that opened onto a small balcony overlooking the ocean. The furnishings were simple yet elegant: a cream-colored sofa, a wooden dining table for four, and wall shelves waiting to be filled. In the kitchen, copper pots hung from hooks, and the blue and white tiled counters reflected the shimmer of the sea outside. "I've stocked the basics in the fridge," Linda said, opening a cabinet to show me the plates and glasses. "There's olive oil, wine, bread, cheese, and fruit. You should rest today. Tomorrow, we'll take a walk around town." I nodded, unexpectedly moved by the kindness of a stranger, someone who owed me nothing yet cared for Robert's dream as if it were her own. "Mrs. Linda, I don't know how to thank you enough." "No need to," she said gently. "We're neighbors now. Around here, neighbors are family." She patted my hand. "I live right over there." She pointed out the window to a similar house about 50 yards away. "If you need anything, just call. Robert made me promise to look after you." After she left, I stood alone in what was now my kitchen, and for the first time in months, I felt something real. Peace. I slowly unpacked, hung my clothes in the closet, placed Robert's photo on the bedside table, and arranged my toiletries in the sunlit bathroom, complete with a clawfoot tub and a window facing the sea. Every action carried meaning, the opposite of the emptiness I'd felt when packing up Mark's and Amy's rooms. As the sun began to set, I poured a glass of wine Linda had left and stepped onto the balcony. The ocean stretched endlessly before me, painted gold and coral pink by the sunset. White sails drifted in the distance like whispered prayers, and the waves breaking against the rocks pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat. The phone in my purse began to ring. I almost ignored it. I had avoided all contact for 4 days, but something made me glance at the screen. Emily, my granddaughter, calling for the first time since Christmas. I answered after the 4th ring. "Grandma, oh my God, I finally reached you. I've been trying for days." Her voice sounded different, not distant and casual as usual, but clearer, emotional. "Hello, Emily." "Grandma, where are you?" "Mom won't say anything. She just told me you argued with her and Uncle Mark, then disappeared. There's all this drama about selling the house." "Calm down, Emily." "I can't calm down. I'm furious. Do you know what I just found out? Do you know what Mom told me yesterday?" I sat down on the balcony chair, watching the last light sink below the horizon. "What did your mom say?" "She said you paid for my college $500 a month for 2 years. She said it like it was some big burden she quietly carried to protect me." "But Grandma," her voice cracked. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't know how to." The pain in her voice cut through me like a knife. "Your mother thought it would be better that way." "Better for who?" "For her so she could take credit for sacrificing to pay my tuition? Or for Uncle Mark so he could keep pretending you were broke and needed to sell your house?" Emily broke into tears. The sound of her sobbing filled the line, heavy and raw. "Grandma, I feel so ashamed, really ashamed." "No, Emily, you have nothing to be ashamed of." "Yes, I do. I believed them. I thought you were just a lonely, fragile old woman who needed to be taken care of. I stopped calling because Mom said you were emotionally delicate, that if I talked to you too much, you'd become dependent. She said you needed space to grieve, that it would be better for you that way." I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply as the scent of lemon and salt drifted through my hair. "And I gave you that space," Emily continued, her voice now steadier, tinged with anger. "Meanwhile, you were quietly paying for my tuition, my books, maybe even my vacation, and I never thanked you or asked how you were coping after Grandpa died. Emily, and now? Now they're telling everyone you've lost your mind, that you ran off during some kind of breakdown. But Grandma, you're not having a breakdown, are you? You've just had enough, haven't you?" Those words made me chuckle softly, even as tears rolled down my cheeks. "Words, Emily. Sorry, but it's true." I looked out at the night sea, where the distant town lights began to flicker, and for the first time, I felt something real. Hope. "You're right, sweetheart. You're absolutely right." "Where are you, Grandma? In Florida?" I heard the shift in her tone, surprise replacing anger. "Yes, Florida. Your grandfather bought a house here for our retirement. I'm sitting on the balcony right now, looking out at the ocean." A long pause, then her voice softened. "It must be beautiful. It's the most beautiful place I've ever seen." "Grandma, I need to say this. I'm sorry." "There's nothing to be sorry for, honey. You were misled by the people you trusted. That's not your fault. But I should have known. I should have called you more. I should have asked how you were. Emily, listen to me." I stood up, pacing the small balcony as the first stars appeared overhead. "You're only 20. Your job now is to learn, grow, and figure out who you want to be, not to worry about family finances or adult manipulation. But I want to do better. I want to be better." "Then do it. Call me because you miss me, not because you need something. Visit me because you want to, not because you feel obligated. Love me because I'm your grandmother, not because I paid for your education." Silence again. "Grandma, can I come visit you in Florida?" The question caught me off guard. "Emily, I don't know how long I'll be here." "That's okay. I have summer break in 3 weeks. I can change my plans, cancel that pointless trip, I'm guessing you paid for that too, and come see you. I want to see Grandpa's dream house. I want to sit on that balcony and hear you talk about your new life." New life. The phrase warmed me from the inside. What will your mom say about that? I don't care what she says. Well, I do care, but I'm not letting her control my choices anymore. Grandma, I'm 20 years old, and I just realized I've never actually known you. I only knew the version they created. The grandma who baked cookies, sent birthday cards, and had to be handled like glass. But that's not who you are, is it? I thought about the woman who stood up to Mark in the hallway, who shattered her children's assumptions, who boarded a plane to Florida with no return date. "No," I said, "that's not who I am." "That's wonderful," Emily said firmly. "I can't wait to meet the real you." After we hung up, I sat quietly in the dark for a long time, listening to the sound of the waves and feeling something unfamiliar rise in my chest. For the first time in months, I was eager for tomorrow. And for the first time in years, I wasn't lonely anymore. 3 weeks later, I saw Emily walking out of the airport, and I almost didn't recognize her. The picture-perfect college student I remembered from Christmas photos was gone. No straightened hair, no flawless makeup, no carefully curated outfit for social media. In front of me stood a young woman in faded shorts, a simple white t-shirt, her dark hair tied up loosely, face bare except for sunglasses and a bright, genuine smile, the kind of smile that lights up an entire face. Grandma. She dropped her backpack and ran to hug me, a real hug, not the polite, distant kind from family gatherings. This hug carried longing, gratitude, and real love. "Let me look at you," I said, holding her shoulders. She was thinner than I remembered, but there was a new energy in her eyes, a strength that hadn't been there before. "You look amazing," she said, studying my face carefully. "Really, you do. You look healthy, sun-kissed, and did you cut your hair?" I touched the short haircut Linda had convinced me to try at the salon in town. "Just a little trim." "It looks great. You look like yourself." On the drive home, Emily rested her cheek against the car window like a child, marveling at the palm trees, the small seaside cottages, asking about everything along the way. Her excitement was contagious. It reminded me of Robert's enthusiasm on the rare trips we took together. "We're here," I said as the car rolled into the driveway. "Your grandpa's dream." Emily stood quietly in the garden for a long moment, admiring the bougainvillea, the lemon trees heavy with fruit, and the balcony, where I had spent hours reading and writing in my new journal. Then she turned to me, eyes glistening. "He knew, didn't he? He knew you'd need this place." I think he did. That evening, we sat together on the balcony, sharing the grilled seafood Linda had insisted on making to welcome Emily. She treated my granddaughter like her own, and I saw Emily respond with a natural warmth, something I rarely saw when she was around her parents. "Tell me about your life here," Emily said, leaning back in her chair as the sunset faded. "I want to know everything." And I told her about my morning walks around the little coastal town, where the fishmonger, the baker, and even the coffee shop owner already knew my name and my favorite order, about my Spanish lessons with Nancy, a retired teacher who lived down the street, and about the book I was writing, not the romance novel Robert once encouraged me to try, but a memoir about marriage, motherhood, and the slow erosion of self when love becomes duty and duty becomes burden. "You're writing a book?" Her eyes widened. "That's incredible. I didn't know you ever wanted to write." "I didn't either," I smiled. Not until I finally had enough quiet to hear my own voice. Emily stayed silent for a moment, the golden light of sunset reflecting off her face, and I realized maybe, finally, things were beginning to change. "Mom called me yesterday," she said. I flinched slightly, but Emily raised a hand. "She tried to talk me out of coming. She said you were having a breakdown, that me visiting would make it worse. She said I was selfish for coming here instead of spending the break with family." "And what did you tell her?" I told her, "Maybe it's about time someone in this family was selfish for you." Her voice rang firm, carrying a steel edge I'd never heard before. Then I asked her, "Who's really having the breakdown? Why hasn't anyone called to ask how you are? Why do they only talk about you, like you're some kind of problem to be managed? And what did your mom say?" She couldn't answer, because if she did, she'd have to admit the truth that none of them care about your happiness. They only care about access to your money. Those blunt words should have hurt, but instead, they felt like vindication. "Emily, I want you to understand something," I said slowly. "I don't want you to pick sides. Mark and Amy are your family too." "No." Her voice was firm. "They picked their side the moment they used me against you. When they made me believe you were weak, poor, while you were quietly paying for my education. When they tried to isolate you from the people who genuinely cared." She leaned forward, eyes shining. "Grandma, I've been thinking about this for weeks, and I realized something. They didn't just lie to you about money. They lied to me about you." "What do you mean?" "They made me believe you were a fragile old woman who needed to be protected from strong emotions. They said if I called you too often, you'd become dependent, that it was better to give you space to grieve. But it wasn't about protecting you. It was about controlling the story." I stared at my granddaughter, amazed at the sharpness in her words. "They wanted you isolated, desperate enough to accept their terms." And they wanted me far away so I wouldn't see how they really treated you." Emily's hands tightened into fists. "You know what's worse, Grandma? They almost succeeded. I almost became the kind of person who could ignore your loneliness just because it was easier that way. But you didn't become that person," I said, "because you forced the truth into the light. If you hadn't left, if you hadn't made them expose themselves, I might have gone my whole life never really knowing who you were." We sat quietly, wrapped in the kind of peace that comes when the stars begin to appear in the sky. Finally, Emily spoke. "Grandma, can I stay longer than a week?" The question caught me off guard. "What about your studies?" "I talked to my professors before I came. I can do independent research for the rest of the semester, submit my work, and take exams online. I just don't want to leave so soon. I want real time with you, not just holiday visits or awkward phone calls. Emily, your studies will still be there when you're ready to return. But this chance, this time with you, I might never have again." She looked at me, her eyes carrying the same quiet determination I used to see in Robert's. "Grandma, I'm 20 years old and I realized I've never had a real conversation with you. My whole life, you've been the one who remembered birthdays, sent gifts, and brought desserts to family dinners. But I don't know what makes you laugh, what you dreamed of, or who you were before you became our grandma, and you want to know all that? I want to know everything." The next morning, Emily joined me for my usual walk around town. She made the baker laugh with her clumsy Spanish, helped Linda weed the garden, and listened intently as Nancy told stories from her years teaching high school in Miami. "Your grandmother has the soul of a writer," Nancy said to Emily as we sat at the cafe. "She notices what others overlook. She understands the weight of small moments. She's always been like that," Emily said, her gaze warm and full of understanding as she looked at me. "I just never noticed before." That afternoon, we drove to a small beach I'd discovered the week before, a hidden cove tucked behind a winding road lined with palm trees. Emily spread out a blanket on the sand while I unpacked the picnic basket we'd prepared together. "Grandma, can I ask you something kind of personal?" I looked up from the sandwiches. "Go ahead. Are you planning to go back?" The question I'd been avoiding even in my own thoughts. "I don't know," I said, "but I could stay here forever legally. Robert made sure of that. I have residency, health care, everything." I handed her a sandwich and sat beside her. "Why do you ask?" "Because I think you should stay." The certainty in her voice took me by surprise. "And I think you should let Mom and Uncle Mark handle their own lives without relying on your money or waiting for your approval." Emily took a bite of her sandwich, chewing slowly, thinking. "And I think I should transfer to a college here." "What?" "There are plenty of programs in Miami, Tampa, even right here in Key Largo. I could finish my degree in international relations, become fluent in Spanish, and learn to live differently. Or I could take a year off, work with Mrs. Linda at her pottery studio, help you with your book, and figure out who I am when I'm not performing for anyone." "Emily, that's a big decision. It's as big as you getting on a plane to Florida, cutting your hair, writing a book, and refusing to sell your house." Emily turned fully toward me, her eyes bright and clear. "Grandma, my whole life I've been living by what other people expected. What Mom wanted, what my professors wanted, what my roommates thought was right. But sitting here with you, I feel like for the first time, I actually see things clearly. I realize you're not the weak old woman they described. You might be the strongest person I've ever known. And I also realized I don't want to be the kind of person who abandons someone they love just because it's easier." Emily's voice grew firmer. "I want to be the kind of person who shows up, who chooses love over convenience, truth over comfort. Emily, your mother will never forgive me if you ruin your future because of me. This isn't ruining it. Grandma, this is saving it." Emily took my hand warm and steady. "Grandma, all this time I've been sleepwalking through college, doing everything on autopilot because it's what people expected. But now I'm awake, and I want to spend that awareness with someone who truly sees me, you." That night, we called the university together to request a deferment for Emily's studies. Then we called Linda to ask about training at her pottery workshop. Finally, as the Florida sun dipped below the horizon and the sound of waves filled the air like a soft drumbeat, Emily made one last call to her mother. "Mom, it's Emily. I'm staying in Florida a little longer. No, I'm not having a breakdown. I'm waking up. I know you're upset, but I'm 20 years old, and I have the right to decide how I spend my time. Actually, Mom, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm choosing to stay with Grandma, because she's the only one in this family who's ever treated me like I matter, not like someone who's supposed to bring something. Emily ended the call and turned off her phone. Do you regret it? I asked. She smiled a calm, knowing smile that reminded me of Robert. No, Grandma. I just regret it took me 20 years to realize where I truly belong. We sat together on the balcony, watching the night sky fill with stars. I realized that my story of loss had turned into a story of discovery. I had lost the illusion of a family that demanded my weakness, but found a real one that valued my strength. And for the first time since Robert died, I wasn't just surviving, I was blooming. This story is a work of fiction, inspired by real-life experiences, with names and locations changed. Yet behind every detail lies the quiet ache of a mother who gave everything, only to be met with indifference from those she loved most. When seen as a burden, should Janet stay silent or stand up to defend her dignity? Perhaps that's a question each of us must face at least once in life. Because sometimes, kindness must be protected by strength, and true love never demands blind sacrifice. May God bless those who are finding their voice and rediscovering their worth, reminding them it's never too late to begin again. Stay until the end to watch 2 more stories I believe you'll truly love right here on the final screen of this video.